But then, like, I feel like our next topic we can almost kind of share the floor on. 'Cause I feel like we've got
for sure.
pretty similar. I don't know.
We had
pretty similar ideas.
Ideas, approaches, maybe. My Little Pony.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
No, I can't say I've seen it.
Alright, topic 2. So yeah, like Kev said, it's kind of a shared topic that we kind of just talked about downstairs before recording and going live. I think it's... Okay, I had a word for it, but apparently it's not the right word, or not a good word, which I agree.
Well, no, I think you could use it. You just have to explain like the real context, because I think if
For
you
sure.
use that, people will get what you're getting at. Because I understood what you were saying. It was
Right.
just there's a word out there, and if I had a dictionary, I'm sure I could find it, but I don't remember.
Right. Okay. So the terminology I used was selfish. I think people need to be more selfish, but I mean that in a way where they need to not be so invested in everyone else's life and what they're doing. What I mean by that is everybody in this world, wherever they live, they have different opinions, they have different choices, they have different views, religion, politics, whatever. We're all different. I think people egocentric. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway,
We're getting closer.
we're getting closer. We're like tiptoeing on it.
We'll figure it. We'll get it.
So, I think people need to be a little bit more selfish in that they need to focus on them and not so much what other people are doing and what they think is quote unquote wrong. Now, are there clear and cut wrong things to do? Yes. Don't kill people. Don't hurt people. Blah, blah, blah. Other stuff. But, for example, simple example. Kev likes this game. I like this game. No, your game sucks. You should like my game. Like, it's the stupidest thing, putting it in layman's terms. But you can put it across the map and you see it happen all the time. And the biggest example that we probably won't dive into is politics. But people, killing someone's wrong. Oops.
Depends on the state. As I understand, it might be okay in Alabama. I don't know.
Don't live
Those
there.
people
I
are
can't
crazy.
Tell you. So yeah, the biggest thing we can say is politics. Like, obviously, as of recording this podcast, date and time, we have a certain president that is very,
Less than polished?
he's not really preferred by a good margin of people, but some people like him, and it caused a big, giant fucking rift every time it comes up. So, there's nothing wrong with either side. Divisive. Thank you. Divisive.
Now that see that, divisive. Yeah,
Divisive.
that's a word.
Yeah, I know that. There's nothing.
I've seen it.
There's nothing wrong with liking this side or liking this side. It's a matter of people just saying, no, your side is wrong in any respect, not just politics, and not just worrying about them. Like, I think sometimes people are so focused on other people's shit that they don't know what's going on with their own life, or they can't fix the problems that they're having. Because, let's admit it, we all have problems with anything. It could be a big problem, it could be a small problem. And there's not always a visible solution to that problem. Like, sometimes it does take a little bit more work in figuring out what to do first and then doing that thing. And it can be frustrating. But I think we're using the energy we should be using to fix our own problems and putting it somewhere else that it shouldn't be. So, that's my thing. It's just like, I think people need to focus more on their own things and not be so invested in others. Self-centered might be the phrase.
Yeah, I think that's a little closer to the mark. Because I think selfish just has a bad connotation.
For sure, yeah.
And that's not what he was going for. The thing... I won't say my location on the political spectrum.
No, you don't.
But I think, and Brett kind of brought it up a little bit earlier with the holiday greetings. we've entered into a time where like people are very politically correct.
Yes.
And I understand what the knee-jerk reaction is to that. You know, people. I mean, I don't like saying things that hurt or bother people.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we've gotten to a point now where people aren't allowed to speak freely because of this, and it's like I can't remember what it was. Like some college out in California, like a very conservative person was invited to speak at their school. And the students there didn't like what this person had to say, and they actually rioted and like were burning cars and stuff. Like, okay, whether you agree with the guy or not, you have in this country, you do have the right to think what you want to think, and even if it's like the one where I have a hard time with this is like the neo-Nazis or the KKK. You know, these guys, they say the stupidest stuff. I think 98% of the country would agree that what they're saying does not represent what America is about, and or at least should be about. But they have a right to say what they think they need to say, whether you and I agree with it or not. And
if we want that right, we have to give them that right. And
actually,
it's not saying that it's right or wrong, which you just said literally.
Yeah.
It's just you're fine. There's a good side of things and there's an unfortunate shitty side of things, and that's...
Well, and actually, I heard a really funny story once.
Oh, okay.
And I love this because it just shows that certain people in government can have a really good sense of humor. There was some town, I want to say in Illinois or Indiana, called Skokie.
Okay.
And back in the 90s, these, like... Or no, not... I'm sorry, this is a different story. Going back to the one I was thinking of.
Yep.
There was a KKK chapter. Like, you know, like when you're driving around, it says you can adopt this highway?
Yeah.
Like, so you clean it up and whatever. So this KKK chapter decided they wanted to adapt a highway. Yeah. But the government didn't want to allow, the local government did not want to give that to them.
Yeah.
But they can't really block them because they do technically have a right to be this group or whatever. So they gave them the right to that highway. But in a very... You know, instead of burning cars and causing all these issues, they did something that I think is so freaking funny and so great. They renamed that highway Martin Luther King Jr. Highway. So now these total racist tool bags have to clean up a highway after one of the greatest African Americans we have had in this country. And I just think that's such a great way to handle it because you're not causing any violence, but you're also kind of letting these people know, like, we don't agree with you. You have the right to be that way.
Yeah.
But we don't agree with you. And, you know, again, I think it's a little bit humorous in a way. Not against Martin Luther King, but against that other group with the pillowcases on their heads. No, you know, so I was anybody that's ever been online knows that some of the worst stuff gets said.
For sure.
Online. And like you were saying with video games, you read the comment section on a video game review on YouTube, and the stuff that gets said on there, you would think that they were talking about neo-Nazis or something, with the anger on there. It's like, no, fuck you, this game received a 9.5 on GameSpot or whatever. It's like, whoa, relax, it's a video game.
It's unfortunate because it's everywhere too. So, back in August, I was on the Kind of Funny podcast, and we talked about me for the first, 45-minute block. And then there was the recent shooting that happened in Florida at the Madden tournament. Yeah. So they first asked, would you be okay if we were talking about this? And I said, yeah. Your game's media. I think people want to hear your opinion on it. So I was like, yeah, sure, go for it. Now, during this section, I respectively sat back because I didn't have a lot to say, and I didn't feel like I'd have anything to add or take away. I wasn't educated enough, I guess you could say, to really implement, or I felt that way. So I kind of, sat back and just took it in. So, all recorded, whatever. They talked about gun control, and that came up, and, whatever. And there was one person was very set in his ways. No guns. Because of something that had happened in his past.
Yeah, sure.
His friend's father got shot down and killed. So he was very decisive on that. I went to go look at the comment section because I'm like, hey, it's my podcast. Let's see how people liked it. La la la. There was some cool comments about me. I'm like, yeah. And then there was the just unload of shit like, oh, Tim's an idiot. Tim dead and dumbass and fucking you should do this. And I'm like, whoa. All right. Now, I didn't know about Tim's situation until after because his mom commented too and said, guys, I understand. Just got to remember Tim's background here.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I understand it now. But, like, holy crap, the amass of just, like you said, hot garbage just in that comment section. Like, I get it, guns are a hot topic too. I don't care. As long as you're not hurting anybody or things like that, I don't know. For me personally, I don't give a shit. But I know people have their own things on that.
Well, and like, on that particular thing, I have my own certain beliefs about that, and I had actually a family member of mine after the one in that high school in Florida knew I felt a certain way about it, and they called to ask me, because they kind of like you were like, I don't really know enough about this to say anything, like what's your opinion on this? So I gave them just a list of straight facts. I wasn't putting opinion on it. I just said, well, look, this is what I've read about. I can't say that this is totally 100% the truth,
right? But
so far what I've read, it makes sense to what I'm seeing, and I gave them some facts about it. And at the end of the conversation, they thanked me, and they're like, oh, it's good to know these. I didn't know these things before, blah, blah, blah. And it was a very rational, very unemotional. It was just like, look, I think this. I think because of these statistics here, blah, blah, blah. And we ended up having, I think, a very beneficial conversation. And again, to bring up Reagan, he had a guy who was in Congress that was very, very opposite of his politics. But so whenever he wanted to get something done that he knew this guy wasn't maybe going to agree with, he would invite him over to the White House for a steak dinner. They would sit there and they would talk it back and forth. And he'd say, look, I know you might not agree with me, but this is why I'm going to do it. This is why I want to do it, whatever. And that guy said, his name was, Tip O'Neill. Tip O'Neill was the Reagan's opponent guy. He came out at one point and he said, you know what? Every time I come away from one of these dinners, I either appreciate what he had to say and agree with him now, or I still don't agree with him, but now I understand why he felt that way, and I think we can find some common ground. Yeah. And that's beautiful. Yeah, and we've lost that. And like going off the PC thing, because I'm always on tangents.
It's fine. It's the way. What are we talking about back?
I get the knee-jerk reaction for a politically correct society. I understand it. I think it's natural that we don't want to offend people.
For sure.
But at the same time, if something is the truth, right? Like we said earlier, there's objective truth. Like killing people is always wrong, right? When there are truths that people maybe don't want to acknowledge because it doesn't fit their worldview or whatever, just because it might bother them, I don't think that means you don't say the truth. Especially when it's something so cut and dry. Yep. And the big issue I have with the current person in the White House is I've heard him say all the time on TV, like, oh, I'm not politically correct, blah, 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 and then he'll, like, go and insult people.
Right.
And here's I'm all for not being politically correct in a respectful way. If you feel that something is the truth, especially if you're in government, you have to say what you're thinking, because that's what we put you up there for. You gotta say what you're thinking so that people know what you're up to, whether they support you or not. But you don't have to do it disrespectfully. There's a difference between being politically incorrect and just being an asshole. Right. Right? So like if Brett and I disagree on something, and let's say it was something like, black and white, like there is right and wrong, and I tell Brett, no, you are wrong and this is why you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. I can do it in a way where I don't demean him. And that's where I wish I could kind of talk to this individual and say, hey, listen, bud, like, I get what you're saying is important to you, and I get it's important to a lot of people, but you don't have to be so, I don't know what the good word is. I don't want to say offensive because that's it. I don't know. You don't have to be so antagonistic towards people. If you don't agree with somebody, just let them know you don't agree with them. Let them know what your perspective is, and I don't know. Just do it respectfully. It's not hard to be respectful to people. I've met people from my work because I go all over the world. I meet people of all different types of political, religious, whatever.
Yeah.
But I have to work with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So if these conversations come up, there are ways to have conversations with people where you don't attack their, like you were saying with the guy from Kind of Funny.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why he feels that way.
Yeah.
And like with any political belief, people have a very personal reason why they feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school with a guy, if you remember back in, I think it was 2013, that guy went into the movie theater in Colorado and killed people at the Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
One of the kids I went to school with in my class, dad was in that theater and got killed. Now, I don't know what his views are on, let's say, the gun debate.
Yep.
But if he came up to me, hypothetically, and was having an argument stating he's against guns, if I was like, let's say I was exactly the opposite of him, I would not go after what he believes because he has a very personal reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of what happened to his father. And you have to respect that. You know, whether you agree with it or not, people have reasons. And to not respect their reasons is basically to tell them what you think, what you've experienced doesn't matter, and that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's experience and ideas, whether they're in agreement with you or not, everybody has their reasons, and what they think matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be, I don't know, you have to just be cordial, you have to be respectful. And then that way, at least, let's say Brett and I are having a discussion about something that we disagree on. And let's say Brett's being like super realistic, rational, you're not being a dick, but I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm attacking you, I'm calling you a tool, all this stuff. And let's say there's people there that are listening to us. Even people that don't agree with you and aren't going to agree with you by the end of that discussion,
right?
They're even, at least they're going to walk away and go, you know what though, he handled himself respectfully.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't agree with him, but he definitely came off the better person.
Just like the dinner conversation.
Exactly.
Like, there's nothing wrong with agreeing to disagree. That's the thing
Absolutely.
too. Nobody's like, we're not telling you have to, not accept. We're not saying you have to tit for tat, switch your opinions, totally agree with the other person, whatever. If you feel not obligated, if you feel inclined to do that, like your opinion changed based on the conversation that you guys had, then yeah, good for you. Cool. If you're still at the opinion you had prior to the conversation, that's fine too. But if you're able, like Kev said, to have a civil conversation about it, explain what you feel and listen to how they feel, that's fine. That's how we move forward and not just bicker at each other and stand still, or worse, go backwards. And there's a lot of bickering going on.
Well, you know, it's funny, like you were saying, like, not pushing, like, personal beliefs or, you know, politics or religion or whatever. I do have a couple of, like, faith-based stickers on my truck.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's kind of funny. I mean, at least it cracks me up, but I also have a corny sense of humor. It just says plainly, my boss is a Jewish carpenter. Right? Now, like, that cracks me up. I don't know. It's just kind of funny. But so, I've had a couple of people, like at the big red light intersection in Wilton.
Yeah.
I was in the far right lane, and somebody was in the left lane, and I see them in the side view mirror kind of like stop here,
Yeah.
and they're definitely reading it, and then they kind of pull up, like looking at me with a smile on. And it's one of those things, like, if somebody wants to, like, roll down their window and ask me about it, I have absolutely no problem telling them what the story behind the bumper sticker is, why I have it, blah, blah, blah. But if somebody's, like, super pissed off about it, you know, like, oh, you damn Christian, whatever, you know, you know, whatever, it's your opinion. But I kind of find stuff like that is a great way to communicate things, because you're not pushing people to agree with you, but you're also opening the door for a discussion. And I don't know. Plus the sticker just cracks me up every time I go to my truck. I don't know. It's my really corny sense of humor, but yeah, just I kind of find I was watching a really interesting discussion between a person who was Muslim and a person who was Jewish, which if you hear anything in the news at all, that's very conflict-driven discussion between those two groups.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to watch these two have a really polite, respectful conversation, and I'm sitting there thinking, why can't it always be like this? You're not going to come away and go, you know what, I don't want to be Jewish anymore, I want to be Muslim. You're probably not going to be that way if you're Jewish, but you can at least sit there and say, you know what, he actually had a lot of good points, and I should look into it.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we just, I don't know. I'm just a big believer in just being courteous to people, regardless of what their belief is, and if it gets to a certain point where you're like, dude, this is like bashing my head against the wall, just politely extract and say, you know what, I appreciate what you have to say, I'll take it into consideration, maybe we should talk about this again sometime, even though you don't mean that at all.
100%. Like, you don't have to end it poorly. Like, that's perfect. Yeah, even if you know I'm not getting anything out of this, then yeah, just be kind, be polite about it, and you can still get out of it. You don't have to cause a fight over it and leave it at that.
Well, I was in Norfolk once, and there was like a little sailor bar near the port. So I was in there after work, I like eating some food and having a beer or whatever, and this guy I worked with knew I had certain, religious beliefs or whatever, and he had way too much to drink, so you have to also take that into account. Like, he's not his normal self right now. He's acting differently than he normally does, because this is a guy I really enjoyed working with on a daily basis. So he started going after me about my beliefs. So thankfully, I was at a good state of mind where I could realize this guy's saying things he wouldn't normally say and just keep it respectful. So he's just laying offensive things at me, and attacking me, and blah, blah, blah. I just answered what he said over and over and over again, just kept it polite and everything. And at the end of the conversation, he looks at me, he goes, you brought up some good points. I hadn't really thought of that stuff before. That's interesting, blah, blah, blah. And he still did not agree with me. But, as he told me later on, because he apologized the next day because he could kind of remember bits and pieces of what happened, and blah, blah. He says, I respect you for defending what you say, not just caving in, but you didn't go after me. I was like, look, what's the point? I don't know. I heard a comment once, and I think it applies to anything, politics, religion, whatever. The comment was something like, you can win the argument, but lose. Like, if I just keep bashing Brett on something over and over until he finally just gives up, I might have won that argument, but I've potentially lost a friendship or a relationship, and I didn't actually win, because Brett still probably doesn't agree with me. So, it's just keep these things in mind, I guess.
Yeah.
That's like our general message is,
don't be so invested in others.
Yeah, like, if you're like, goodness, it's like those people that used to go to the soldiers' funerals, like, with the really offensive signs about, like, gay people and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel that way, if that's, like, your personal beliefs, like, okay, fine, but why do you have to go, like you're saying, why do you have to go invest time in shoving that down other people's throats? Why can't you just, like, if you think the rest of us are terrible people and we're all gonna burn or whatever, just go live in your community and not interact with us. Like, why do you
laugh at us later if you're right?
Yeah, like, if we're all burning, like, well, good on you, whatever. But, like, why do you have to go off your point, your original point? Why do you have to go force and make other people? And I think that's where, honestly, I was talking about this with my dad the other day on a similar issue. I think it comes down to, like, an insecurity. Like, you're not actually truly comfortable with what you believe, but you think the more people that agree with you, the more you must be right. Why not just be self-confident and say, this is what I believe, this is what I think. If people don't agree with me, that's fine, but this is what works for me.
Yeah, I saw, going off of that, I've seen a recent example of this on a TV show. So, I was watching, I'm not sure if you know the show Mom. It's on, like, CBS or whatever. It's got Anna Faris.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, they had an episode where she was dating a vegan guy. And, like, they've been depicted like, oh, like, you have to have my lifestyle, or I'm better than you, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's the kind of thing. Like,
oh, yeah.
You can do, if you choose to be vegan, good. If you choose to be vegetarian, good. If you choose to be, eat meat, that's fine, too. Like, do that. You don't have to be that person who's like, oh, well, I'm doing better than you. Here's this thing or whatever. Like, Sure, you can share your experiences from it, but don't be the asshole who's like, you gotta do it my way, man.
Well, it's like, alright, so, just going off that point, it's like, just because it's what I'm familiar with, like, for example, my religious beliefs.
Yep.
They give me my guidance to get through my day.
Yep.
They gives me my strength to make it through things, whatever. And it's a very personal thing. And to me, if this is what gets me through, and I know it's truth in my life, you don't have to be that way because, I mean, like, you being that way or not being that way doesn't make my choices any different.
Right.
You know? Like, you could be over here, like, all Satanist, with, like, killing babies, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
If my beliefs are good for me and they're getting me through, like, if I turn you or not, it doesn't make my lifestyle any more sufficient for me or not. You know, like, I don't get this need to, like, be like, you know what, I like sports. People are big on this. Sports, especially, like, college football, right? Because I've been watching a lot of college football, and you get these people that are, like, diehard one school, and it, like, what's the big one? Alabama-Auburn. It's, like, one of the biggest rivalries in sports. And one of the two colleges, I can't remember which, has, like, this big tree, like, big, beautiful tree on campus. And before every game, they, like, gather around the tree and have, like, a pregame ceremony. One of the fans from the other school killed the tree.
Oh,
like, put poison in the roots or something and killed the tree. It's like, what the fuck? Like, you can't just be happy that you're that one school's fan. Like, why do you have to go and kill this tree that's, like, 100 years old or something? Like, what the fuck?
I don't have anything as sinister as that, but...
That's just weird, right?
Yeah!
I mean, like, why be that invested in a college sport?
I don't give a shit about hockey. I enjoy watching hockey. You know, it's fine.
You watch your goddamn mouth.
I know. My girlfriend's a big fan of the Avalanche. And whenever she's watching a game and we happen to be on a phone call or something, and she's always reacting to the game like, oh man, I hope those Carolina Hurricanes are doing work. And I just tease her because I know she cares about it. I honestly don't give a shit. But, you know, I'm just having fun about it. It's just like, oh boy.
No, I mean, it's like, I was walking somewhere, I don't know if it was California, but I was wearing a Red Sox hat. And some, like, New York transplant that lived in California that's a Yankees fan yells over and goes, hey, fuck Boston and fuck you. And I'm sitting there going, I would never... Like, alright, let me just put this out on the record. I despise the Yankees. I really do. And most of the fans that I've met are total dickheads. But would I ever actually go out of my way to, like, yell across the parking lot to a guy and be like, yo, fuck New York, man, like, fuck you and your pinstripe uniforms? Like, no, like, to be honest, like, when it comes to sports, like, somebody like the Yankees and Red Sox, one of the oldest rivalries in sports, right? It's not fun if the other team isn't good. Alright, so, like, for this year, for example, the Yankees and the Red Sox met in the playoffs.
Okay.
And it was... I mean, there was really tense moments as a fan where I'm like, oh my god, I wonder if we're going to make it through this series, you know? But that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Like, when the Yankees are good, and we're good, and we beat them, it makes that more special. Because it's not like you beat up, like, a really terrible team. Like, it's like, if you're the New England Patriots and you crush the Cleveland Browns last year...
Who cares?
Now, like, if you're the New England Patriots and you beat the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, okay. Good win. Good win on you, you know? But, shout out to my boys, the Browns, though. Baker Mayfield is killing it. I love that kid. I freaking love that kid.
I know they got the first win. I haven't paid attention since, but I hope Billy's happy.
I was watching one of their games this season where, like, their offensive line is terrible. I mean, it's just objectively terrible. And you just see it break apart, and the defense is running at the quarterback, and he just goes, well, fuck it. He takes the ball, and he runs. And he runs for like 40 yards.
Nice.
And I'm sitting there going, oh, shit, my man Baker, he's killing it. Totally unrelated to this topic, but I would never poison a tree, though. What the fuck? Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's good if you're an Avalanche fan, even though they're terrible. But don't feel the need to go fuck with other people over sports. It's like, you know who's actually worse than us? In the UK, with soccer. I was in Scotland. I was in Glasgow, actually. So like Scotland has their own soccer league, the Scottish Premier League, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Celtic and Rangers are they're two. It's like their Yankees and Red Sox rivalry, right? So when they play, it's like the whole city of Glasgow shuts down because it's like, oh shit, like the game, it's happening, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we were there for that day, and we didn't know because we're just American, you know. What do we know about soccer? We call it soccer. We don't even call it football. But people are marching through the streets in like they have these gangs that are like called hooligans or whatever, like soccer hooligans, and they're like in gangs looking for hooligans from other teams to get in fights with. It's like we're marching down the street in Glasgow and we see this green and white clad group of Celtic fans like chanting their like team song or whatever, and so we go into this restaurant and there was a bathroom in there that like it was actually kind of cool. It's like a tile wall and you pee on the wall and it goes down to this like lower trough in the ground that's not, you know, foot level, but you know, it goes down.
All right.
So I'm in there peeing and I feel this like, I hear that like there was like, you know, those old saloon doors in the westerns that go like that. They had those in the bathroom, and I hear those kind of creak open. So I'm like, oh, somebody's, you know, else taking a pee, whatever.
Yeah.
But then like I feel like somebody right here,
Oh God.
and like I could feel hot breath, and I'm like, the fuck? So I look and there's this Scottish dude who's drunk. He's just like,
Mm-hmm.
and he looks at me and goes, Celtic or Rangers, and I'm like, now, if you're an American in this situation, always say I don't watch soccer. Because then they just leave you alone because they know you have absolutely no idea. I made the mistake of picking a team, and I was wrong. I said Celtic or something. He goes, "Oh fuck you then. The Celtic are all terrorists." Like he's like calling the other fans terrorists, right? And like I was like, "Well, I'm sorry. Like I don't really watch soccer. I just picked a team." He goes, "Damn Yankee" or something like that, and then he like walks away. And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." But then we're at the front of this bar, and there's a big plate glass window. And this fan that's in like the blue and red of the Rangers comes up, drops their pants and sticks their ass cheeks on the window and then flicks everybody off in the bar and runs off. And then everybody from the bar runs out to go kick their ass. Like, it is worse than American sports.
Man.
It is worse than American sports. People die almost every year at Manchester games.
Jeez.
Because like how intense it is. And I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, why? Why? I mean, of course, there's always that one Bills fan that gets really drunk, falls out of the stands, and dies.
Mm-hmm.
What else are you gonna do in Buffalo? You know, I mean, I get it, you know, but you know, it's yeah, killing a tree. Why? What did that tree do to you? I'm pretty sure they've never put on a jersey and killed your team. I mean, like, ugh.
So yeah, people need to worry about their own shit.
Yeah, just be happy with your own choices and respect other people's choices.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't mean that their choices are right, but you don't have to attack them for them.
Right.
You know, and if they want to talk to you about their choices, just be helpful and listen. I don't know.
So all you gotta do is listen. That's
All you gotta do. Be overall message, I think, of this podcast, be respectful to people.
Yep.
Care enough about them in your interactions to maybe give them some hope.
Yep.
You know, even if you really don't like the person, don't be a dick. Just, like, be decent. Like, You know what? Fuck it. The slogan of today's podcast, be decent. If you wouldn't do it to or in front of your grandmother, don't do it. That's a pretty good metric, I think.
Yeah.
Because, like, you were talking about traffic. I was trying. I have a temper in traffic. I do, and it's something I'm working on. But I'm getting on the Northway, and you know your acceleration lane. You're supposed to be getting up to 65. I am behind this car that will not go above 40, and I'm getting heated. My blood is boiling, and I'm sitting there going, you know. So finally, I just stop on the gas, and I get around this car, and I'm about to give the person the you know, and then I look, and it's like an 80-year-old woman, barely can see over the steering wheel, and I'm like sitting there going, you're a dick. I mean, now, I didn't know she was an old lady or whatever, but look at that, though. I get irrationally angry about something, and it could be your grandma, it could be my grandma, like, I would never get mad at my grandma for driving. I might be holding on to the side, you know, looking around, I'm hoping I don't die, but, like, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And I was a huge dick at that moment. Thankfully, I didn't flick her off. But you never know who you're interacting with and what's going on with them.
Right.
So yeah, key 2 words of the night:
Be
be decent.